Sayulita Wellness, home of your inner peace.
Okay. Hi, it's Kaylee here. I'm back with another alumni interview, and today we're with Colin Underwood, who just finished one of our recent retreats at the center. So, welcome, Colin. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to hear your experience. Colin wrote us this glowing review, and so I reached out to him. I'm like, "Well, let's do a conversation. I'd love to hear more about your experience." So, just starting off, Colin, why did you seek out this retreat?
It's funny. I'll be really direct and really open the whole time. I sought the retreat out because I was struggling, missing an ex of mine who she broke up with me about 4.5 years ago, and it was a very meaningful relationship. And so that started me on, like, I've done a lot of good work on my own, a lot of all the books behind me, right? And I just felt very stuck. Like I was very proud of the work I'd done, very positive about that, but I felt like my energy was stuck. And I happened to be listening to a podcast doing the dishes one night, and I don't listen to a bunch of podcasts, but this one I did. And the guy was a retired Navy SEAL, had a lot of trauma in his life, and he said that he did psilocybin and it was profoundly effective. And so I started looking at it, and I've never done mushrooms in my life, uh, never had any psychedelic experience in my life, but his very mature, rounded, open critique of it, kind of sealed the deal. So I started looking.
That's so cool. I'm so glad that you were able to find us. And how did you find our retreat in particular? What made you kind of just decide to come to our center?
Googled it, and I think you might have been the second or third uh, center that I found on Google, and the reviews were great. They were 5 star and sounded really good. And for how it sounds, after my experience, and I'm sure you'll ask me more about that, but after my experience, I didn't pick it. I was sent to it. For whatever that's worth, I had a profound feeling that, man, I didn't do this. I was sent there.
Yeah.
So for whatever that's worth, sounds, and I'm a normal guy. I'm not super spiritual. I'm very open to it, but yeah, I had my experience like, man, I didn't do this. I
Yeah.
was sent here.
Yep, there's a higher,
So
higher power intervening. So let's kind of let's dive into it. So what was your experience like with the let's start with the maybe the retreat overall, and then we can talk about the specific mushroom journey.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the experience was tremendous. I was terrified, and I mean terrified. And I that is literally terrified. And I've done some scary things. I'm a paramedic. That's my job. I'm not afraid of doing that. Been on some scary scenes, dealt with some scary people, traveled by myself plenty of times. And that was, I mean, a bit nervous to do that stuff, but coming to this retreat, I was absolutely terrified. Both kind of walking into the unknown a bit like that, and then also to take the psilocybin mushrooms. I was absolutely, I mean, my blood pressure, the doctor checked before. I'm a healthy guy. My blood pressure was in the upper 150s, you know, and I was like, I'm terrified. I'm not hypertensive. I'm a healthy guy. My normal pressure is in the one teens, but I'm just petrified. And then even, getting picked up from the airport was really easy. The guy was great. My sign was right there. I walked right up to him. The drive was great. Of course, you're going to a foreign country, like, great. I'm gonna go drive somewhere, get my kidneys harvested or something. But, we went to this beautiful condo overlooking the ocean. I was nervous walking in, even though I think it was Cece who met me. She was very sweet, very nice. And then, kind of walking in this apartment with about 8 or 10 employees just sitting there. I put the brakes on, at work, we walk into some pretty sketchy places. This place was not sketchy. It was very clean. It was a beautiful place. And the people were so nice. Oh my, I've told my parents and my friends that the few people I've shared this with, um, that the psilocybin was a trip. Like I went on a trip, an actual trip. That's why they call it a trip, because I went somewhere. But the employees made it a journey. They gave so much. I'm truly, they made it a journey. I didn't want to leave because I felt so connected to them. There was no corporate feel. We used their first names. They were just normal, very calm, centered, grounded people. Uh, there was no facade to any of them. I live near Minneapolis. I'm not knocking Minneapolis, but you get to uptown a bit and it's a bit of a facade with the whole spirituality thing. Like it's more of a show than it is an actual genuine, more of like an identity rather than
Yeah.
just being generally who they are. And the employees were such genuine, caring people that I can't imagine doing it with other people. I couldn't imagine doing this on some friend's basement floor, like buddies of mine had told me about, or some corporate place.
Yeah, exactly. I think that we're hitting on the set and the setting is so important, like having your mindset prepared through the proper preparation that we do at the retreat, the hypnotherapy, the opening ceremony, all that, and then the setting itself and feeling really loved by by the staff and the team. Like that just makes such a difference so that your job is really to focus, to relax into the journey. But if you're not feeling super safe, it's harder to do that.
Felt so safe. And it was funny, me and there were two other fellas, and we're like normal, regular, down to earth working guys. And you could see the skepticism on all of our faces when we were doing like the opening ceremony, the cacao ceremony. I love the cacao ceremony, but I let it go. I let go of control. I was like, I'm going to follow what these people tell me because they know what they're doing, and this is what you're here to do. But you could see the skepticism. And then after our journey, me and the two other guys were like, okay, it all makes sense. It's almost like they know exactly what they're doing. They were preparing us for that. There was nothing silly about it. Not that it was silly, but there was nothing like fake about it. There was purpose to everything we did that they had us do. And it was without, I mean, I was like, afterwards, I think it was Alejandro. I was like, I listened to every word you said. And when I was on that journey, I remembered it, the little I could remember, because I went away somewhere where the physical stuff didn't exist, but I could come back to my breath and let it go and feel at peace, even though it was quite intense. Yeah, so they very much, and then their presence during the trip. Oh my goodness, it was incredible. It seriously makes me choke up. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about how caring they were.
I was just like, I'm getting shivers.
I mean, too, like when I was, so there, like, and I know there were like three parts or four parts that I've like just thought about it, and the journey itself was the second part for me. And when it got incredibly intense for me, like the intensity just kept going, 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 and I started getting a little nervous that oh my gosh, I've heard people say bad trips, and when I took my blindfold off to like try to grab on the floor trying to ground myself again, I looked up and everyone was in my room supporting me. Everybody. They came in because they knew they needed to. And I felt so cared for, so safe. It was such a special moment. And so I put my blindfold back on, trusted it, and let it go. And that was great.
Wow.
So yeah, they made it a journey. They did.
That's so beautiful. Well, amazing. So, why don't we kind of dive into sharing a little bit about the mushroom experience itself? What was that like for you? Any realizations, any kind of profound healing that you experienced in the ceremony?
Oh, profound. Me and the two other fellows, profound. Um, uh, yeah, we were all very nervous. I'm 6'2", 220 pounds. When you come in, you sign, they go through the paperwork and it mentions violence. And I remember I don't know if I spoke to you when I signed up for it.
Yeah,
Was that you?
you were telling me that you were like, I'm a big guy, like I'm nervous. I don't want to hurt anyone in case I'm getting like rowdy, but I'm not aware
Yeah,
of it.
I know. And the two of the fellows, they were decently sized guys too. And they're really worried about it as well. Like, man, we don't want to hurt. What if we wig out? They reassured us it hasn't happened, that people are usually violent before they take them. And then
Yeah,
during, because you
typically.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, like, yeah. And so I just did it, when we did the cleansing ceremony, and there was the tumbler full of the mushrooms, the psilocybin, and our delicious juice. Let me tell you, first off, the food was incredible. That is the best food, hands down, the best food I've ever eaten. And I can't taste anything. That food's incredible. Like lost my taste from COVID 4.5 years ago. I can't taste a darn thing. but that food was special. It was so healthy, so nourishing. I was never hungry because I was nourished by it. Uh, and that chef was incredible. She was so careful. It was made right in front of us, all from scratch. Beautiful. So yeah, so took the mushrooms, um, laid down in my room on the mattress on the floor, covered my eyes, and I remember just funny thought. It's like, man, did I just fly to Mexico, pay this money to get high with a couple of strangers? It's like, well, you might have, you know. And no, I think I said in my review, this is not getting high. I didn't get high. I had an experience. And so the part that I was really afraid of was the visual. I don't want to call them hallucinations because I didn't hallucinate anything, but the visual changes. I was really afraid that I was going to wig out at that because, you know, the stuff you see in the movies, you hear friends talk about it. At work, I've seen people like having trips on like terrible drugs, you know. Uh, and it's funny. Uh, it took about 30, 20 minutes, 30 minutes for those to really begin in earnest. And it was beautiful. I wasn't the least bit scared. I totally relaxed and just accepted it. And it was quite interesting. It wasn't like in the movies. It wasn't scary at all. Um, and that's what I call like the kaleidoscope phase. Someone said kaleidoscope, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because it's almost like a kaleidoscope. Uh, and then it got more and more intense. I took the booster because I went down. It's funny. I when I went there, I didn't go there for fun.
Right.
I was not in a good mood. I wasn't in a bad spot, but I wasn't in a good mood. I was scared, you know, and I'm a very independent guy. At certain points, I'm like, man, I can just leave. You know, I owe nobody anything, but I'm committed to doing this, you know. Uh, and so, yeah, the kaleidoscope ramped up. I got into it. It was very interesting. So I started to let go quite a bit and got a little giggly. That was fun. And then they, Alejandra and oh, Darlene kind of snapped me out. Darlene was who sat with me. She was so sweet and so thoughtful and careful. Uh, and poor Darlene, my room was cold, so she was wrapped up in like three blankets and a hooded sweatshirt and had a big mug of tea with her just to keep her warm. She was so great though. Uh, yeah, and then the journey happened. So I took the booster, you know, and it was quite intense at that time. And then I left. I left my physical body. Uh, it's like a combination of the most intense roller coaster, kaleidoscope, like kind of if you look at the sun and you see like the sun broiling and churning and stuff, that was the visual. I didn't get the spins. The people I've shared this with, like, oh man, did you get the spins? Because they, you know, they're trying to relate to it like I tried to, and the guys tried to, like, been intoxicated before, you've smoked some weed before, you're trying to relate to it. It's nothing like it. Nothing. I didn't get high and I didn't get drunk. But the journey, and so it's almost like I left, but they were going through my mind as I was leaving. It was like almost like a journey into my mind, but I left. I left myself. And when they said you won't be able to hold, one of the things that they said a lot was come back to your breath. If something is scary, it will only be scary for up to about 3 seconds because you won't be able to hang on to it. And I couldn't hang on to it. I couldn't hang on to anything. I saw my parents' faces, my brother's face, some of my friends' faces who I'm particularly close to. I saw my mom's house. Uh, I kept I kept trying to start an IV in my mind, like going through the steps on starting IVs, like just what can I hang on to? And I couldn't do it. And I was like, what's an IV? IVs don't exist. And my parents like, oh, there's my mom, but who's my mom? What's my mom? What's a mom? And I couldn't hold on to any, so I just couldn't even remember who I was. And it wasn't a loss of memory. It was where I was going. I didn't exist, or my name didn't matter. My physical self didn't matter. It wasn't part of where I was going. And so it wasn't scary going through that. It was intense. It was unnerving a bit, but I was never frightened. The time I did get frightened that I mentioned earlier, when everyone came in my room, when it got really, really, really intense, and I kept trying to grab the floor. I was almost trying to ground myself, but then I had an incredible realization. Uh, They're trying, whomever they are, whatever they are, the medicine, they kept calling the psilocybin medicine. And it was such a beautiful way to say that. And it's so true. They, whomever they are trying to teach me to let go. Like the the people were trying to teach us to let go in all the preparation. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's what they're trying to teach me to let go. I'm getting goosebumps. Like, okay, I gotta let go. And so I didn't even know who I was. I'm like, whomever I am, my spiritual, I had to let go. And so I let go. And I rolled over, hugged my pillow comfortably, not scarily, hugged my pillow, and I just let it happen. And then I wasn't asleep, I wasn't awake, I was somewhere in between. And the best thing I can describe it is that that was the connecting part. I was connecting. And the way I've described to my mom, my dad, my brother, is I was connecting to a spiritual consciousness that was my right to connect to, and everyone else is right. There's nothing special about me with this. I was like, man, we are all meant to connect to this. Oh my goodness. And I don't know how long that went on for. Time didn't exist where I went. Um, it didn't feel long. It didn't feel short. It just was. There wasn't no aspect of time. It just was. And yeah, and then Alejandra came in and snapped me out of it because like I was calm. And when I moved, I was quite stiff, so I figured I'd been there for a while. And Alejandra and Darlene were so wonderful. And Alejandra came in a few times, like during that whole thing, and Darlene would sing to me, play some instruments along with the music. The music was beautiful. It was very intense. It was beautiful music. Oh my goodness. Um, and Alejandra came in a couple times and kind of held my hand and told me I was safe over and over. And I stared at her a lot. And poor Darlene, I mean, it must have been so weird. I'm just staring at them because I couldn't tell if they were real or not. Like
Yeah.
they didn't exist. And it was funny. I told Alejandro, like, and I remember laying there before they snapped me out of it. I said, okay, I think I'm back. I think I'm back. My name is Colin. My name's Colin, and I'm in Mexico, and I'm from Minnesota. And so I knew who I was, and I kept repeating it, but I was still very much experiencing it, but I'd come back to myself. And then I just relaxed, and it was so peaceful. It's just a beautiful, peaceful feeling. And then Alejandra came and stamped me out. Darlene told me the next day that I like jumped out of my skin because I was so just deep into it. And I remember I kneeled up and they opened up the blinds for me to see like the outside and they reoriented me a bit. And I looked at both Darlene and Alejandra. I was like, I remember you. You were here with me. I remember who you are. It was such a profound, real experience. And I said to Alejandra, I said, I'm really sorry. I think I stared at you quite a bit. She goes, oh, it's okay. I'm like, yeah, you look like my ex and you remind me of her. And I care about her. Like I'm not upset, anything like that. There's nothing negative about it. But Alejandra was incredible. You could tell she's been doing this. She goes, oh, thank you. That's not a coincidence. It's on purpose. I was like, oh, okay. So and it's funny, my ex's name is is a shortened version of Alejandra's name that they were using. I don't want to say it because I want to
Of course, of
keep it
course.
private. But so I was like, there's no coincidence to that. No coincidence. And so I spoke to them both. And I was like, you guys have no idea where I just came back from. And they're like, where'd you go? I was like, what? What? She's like, you just said you. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I have no idea where I went. I was still like coming back, but I knew who I was. And then it's interesting. Alejandra said, after like a few minutes of talking, because I thought it was done. I thought it was done. And if it was done, if that would have been it, I had no one could have prepared me what I was getting ready for. Even with all their work, you can't prepare. And that made sense too, because they can't tell you what your experience is going to be.
Right, of course.
It's going to be your experience. But a lot of people, like the fellows I was there with, the workers, they said they had similar experiences with the journey part.
Mm.
And so I was talking to him, and Alejandra, after about like 5 minutes of me talking, if you can't tell, I can talk a bit. Um, she said, "Hey, Colin, you have more work to do."
Um,
I was like, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Yep, you need to go back." I said, "Okay." So I put my mask back on. I laid back down, and she said, "Lay in this position. It's like the receiving position."
yeah.
And then that's where I started the healing part.
Yeah.
And oh boy, that was intense. and so I connected to it. And I remember I sat up and I was like, I feel so weak right now. But I didn't mean physically weak. I meant I'm completely vulnerable to access. Like I have no capacity to stop the medicine from accessing me. I didn't mean physically weak. I felt totally fine. I was like, I'm completely open to them, to whoever they are, right? And when I laid back down, I had a very profound experience. I'll share it with you if that's okay. Do you want me to? Do you want me to go specific?
Yeah, as much as yeah, whatever you feel like you'd like to share, whatever you think would benefit others to hear, I would say it that
Oh,
way.
sure. Sure. Yeah. Um, so it's funny. My intention on the intention setting ceremony part, I think I wrote to get unstuck, to kind of free my energy so I can move forward with more purpose and focus. I think that's why I took a picture of it, so I have it somewhere. But in a nutshell, that's kind of what I was there for. I was like, man, I just feel like my energy is really stuck. And you know, the motivation was I went online. I got lonely for my ex. I've legit looked her up maybe twice in 4.5 years, and because I have a lot of respect for boundaries, and I don't contact her, nothing like that. She asked me out of her life, and that's okay. But I got lonely. I came home from work one night in September, got lonely, and I Googled her and I found her engagement website. And yeah, oh, hard, but I mean, good, good. Who wouldn't want good things to happen for people they care about, right? But that kind of started it, you know, that had nothing, very little to do with the healing part, which is incredible. And it wasn't like I was going on all depressed and moping over my ex, not like that. I want to move forward in my life, right? And so when I laid back down, uh, within a few minutes, a profound grief welled up from like my solar plexus area. It's calling it sadness wouldn't do it right. It was a grief. It was an emptiness that I didn't, that maybe knew was there, but wasn't aware of it. It wasn't an emotion. It was from my spirit, I'd say. And started crying, but not, it was a sob. It was a deep grief sob. Uh, there was really no emotion behind it though, but it was like, no, this is energy inside of you and it's coming out of you. And I had no choice. I let it happen. It felt so necessary to let go of. And in the past, I've struggled with depression, struggled with feeling suicidal. I don't share it, a lot. With my parents know it. My brother does, maybe a few close friends, but it's not my identity. I'm not one of these people that take selfies of my bad days and post them on social media for attention. Like I hate that stuff. This is a very personal thing. I go on a lot of that at work, and it's very profound and personal for people. And so this grief came up, and then I started feeling like I couldn't breathe, like I was gasping. And Darlene the next day said, "Yeah, we could tell you were gasping, you were choking, you were struggling to breathe." And I remember she started singing to me and misting something, and I was like gagging and gasping and coughing and choking. And I almost started to panic a bit. But then I remembered what they taught, come back to your breath and focus. And I said, okay. So I came back and I was breathing. And I said, feel your body. Where are you feeling tension? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm feeling a tension. I thought it was going to be in my lower back because, like a good younger man, I did a lot of deadlifts in my dumber days and hurt my back, and now it gets nice and sore. So I thought I was going to feel it in my back, but I didn't. I felt it in my neck. And so I said, okay, let's think about that. Go there. So in my mind, I'm going to my neck. I know who I am. I'm here, right? But I'm connected to this spiritual consciousness. And I go to my neck and I felt a noose around my neck. I, oh my God, I panicked. And what it was my grandfather's noose. My grandfather on my father's side hung himself many years before I was born. And I knew exactly what it was when I felt it. It was my grandfather's noose around his neck. I ripped it off, and they said I was ripping at my shirt. I was pulling it down. And I said, nah, man, you got to put it back on. And so I did. I put the noose back on. And I said, It's not good enough. You need to step off. And I looked down, I saw the wooden platform, and it's almost like I went into my grandfather's body. Again, I've never met this man. He died well before I was born. Uh, but my father's told me about this, and my dad's a very grounded, good man. He's told me about his struggles with that. So he's very open and would always be willing to talk about it. And so I hung myself. I stepped into my grandfather's body and we hung ourselves together. I didn't see it. I did it. I didn't see him. I didn't talk to him. I went into him. I was him and I decided to do it. He didn't do it for me. I consciously decided that I had to do it. And so I lived and experienced my grandfather's suicide. And I felt my physical body go cold. My limbs and arms and legs went cold. My mouth went dry and I died. I didn't feel pain. It was very, I don't want to say it was scary. It wasn't scary. It was necessary. It felt very, it wasn't pleasant at all. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't pleasant, but I had to do it. I knew I had to do it. I don't know why I did, but I knew I had to. And so that happened. And that terrible grief came up again, came out of me. It was out of my center. It wasn't in my head. It wasn't in my, it wasn't an emotional grief. It was a spiritual grief. And I felt this profound connection to my father and my brother. And I felt a pure, like I was sent there to do this, not by him, not by my grandfather, who was a very good man, just went struggling with a lot of stuff in his life. But I felt like I was meant to and sent, meant to be there and sent to be there to heal this, that this was a spiritual wound that was passed on to my father and my brother and me through our blood, through our spiritual connection. I felt so connected to my grandfather. I felt incredibly connected to my father and my brother and my mom. I felt connected to her too. And it's like, oh my God, I kept shouting, that's why, that's why, that's why. My dad was so hurt by by his father's suicide that he couldn't do this. My brother was the one that got married and had kids. And boy, if anyone took a bet on that back in high school, they would have lost because I was going to be the one that grew up, got married, and had kids. My brother would never going to do that, but he did. And I didn't because I had this, and I've always struggled in relationships, struggled with myself, and this 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 spiritual wound was a huge part of that. And uh, and then I so I felt that I felt connected to my father. I felt my father as a small child, but my grandfather died when my father was in his 20s, I want to say. But I felt my father, like his spirit as a small, wounded, hurt child. I felt my brother, his pain and his wound directly from my grandfather, who would never hurt a fly. My grandfather was a very good man, loved, and I felt, oh yeah, the other thing I felt was my father's unconditional love for me. I felt him holding me. Even what the worst thing I would ever do in my life, whatever it would be, I felt my dad would never not love me. I was like, you're feeling a father's love for his son, and his father loved him. It's profound. And so I had this lived experience. I lived it. I didn't see it. It wasn't a hallucination. I did it. I took the noose off, put it back. I felt it. I felt the physical noose in my hands. Put it back on, and I looked down. I saw the wood. I saw his feet, our feet. And I stepped off, and I made the decision to. And then I came out of it, and I started sobbing to Alejandra and Darlene. It was like I just lived my grandfather's suicide. I just killed myself. I hung myself. I just hung myself. And they were so wonderful about it. I couldn't believe it. Because let me tell you what wasn't I thinking about prior to any of this? I wasn't thinking about that. It doesn't trouble me, you know. I wasn't there for it. I mean, I'm not happy about it, obviously, but like I didn't know him, but I was connected to him. I'm connected to him, still am.
I think we don't always know the things that are holding us back from moving forward in our lives because it can
Oh,
sometimes go back before us and before even our parents. And so that's we're all so connected, even because time isn't super real when you're in that energetic space. It's all we're all one in that greater sense. So
Unreal. Yeah, we're all one. And my mom made sense. So like, oh my God, that's why my mom, struggled, with her emotions throughout. I was like, because she was taking it for us. She was steady for me and my dad and my brother. We had this masculine wound from my grandfather that was passed on to us spiritually. And my mom was steady for us, but she was feeling it. Even though it wasn't from like in her blood, it was in ours, but she was there and and those struggles made so much sense. And I'm close to both my parents and my brother. I've shared this with them both. My mom is insanely curious about it.
Yeah.
She keeps asking me about it, even though, and I'm more than happy. I told them I'd be more than willing to talk to them. So when I came out of it and Alejandra was talking to me, she said, I remember I was still connected. I was connected to spiritual consciousness. And I looked at her, I go, you know what? There's more in there. I
Mm.
gotta go. And I put my blindfold back on, laid back down, and I experienced my uncle's suicide. My uncle, I'd never met him. He's on my mother's sister's husband. And I didn't see him, but I saw the car that he gassed himself in.
Mm.
And I knew it was too late. I knew what was happening. He was either dead or dying.
Mm.
And I was begging him to come out. Please don't do this. So, and it was almost like I was my cousin begging him.
Yeah,
I won't share their names just
of
because
course.
out of,
Yeah.
respect for them. Um, but oh, and I never met him either. He
Yeah.
died 3 years before I was born, but I was connected to that. I wasn't connected in the sense where I was him, but I'm
Yeah.
connected to my cousin.
Right.
Um, and then it's funny. My ex, when I looked her up, didn't text her, didn't contact her. I won't do it, because I respect that totally. I've had a lot of partners, a lot of friends that say that like dudes are really creepy about that. They just won't let go and they won't leave them alone. And I refuse to be that way. But I saw her fiance's name, and her fiance's name is the same name as my uncle.
Oh,
And her fiance's profile mentioned that he was constantly trying not to unalive himself. I was like, oh my God, that's why. That's why. I have a hard time defending how I was when I was with her. I wasn't
mm,
bad. I didn't cheat, didn't hit into anything stupid, but I couldn't love her the way she wanted me to. But I realized that I loved her the way she needed me to. Because I got her out of her shell. I did a lot of good things. I'm not happy with who and how I was back then. I like to say I've grown up a lot since then, but it was profound that, oh my gosh, that's why. That's why. I loved her how she needed me to, not how she wanted me to. So who knows? Maybe she can love this guy the way he needs her to. I don't know. It's not my business, and I'm not trying to control that. I'll let that go. But that made sense. It made a
wild
lot of sense.
synchronicity. Yeah. Wow.
Coincidences, it's all connected, and it's all like there was no coincidence. I was like, that all makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. So coming out of the ceremony the next day, like morning after, how are you feeling then? Like, what does that feel like?
I slept about 2 hours because I was so overwhelmed. I had this overwhelming need to text my family because they didn't know I was there. I didn't tell. I told my neighbors, or I told my good friends and my neighbors because they were watching my kitty.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going, and you can't just say like I'm going to Mexico for 4 days. Ooh, what are you going for? You don't look too excited about it. I'm like, I'm not. I'm going to go do a suicide retreat, and I'm terrified. I'm not going there to get high.
Yeah.
Uh, and the guy, this couple, the guy was like, oh yeah, you're going to go trip ball. I'm like, no man, I don't know why I'm going there. Yeah, I was sent there. I didn't. That's why I was sent
I
there.
call it your divine assignment when you're
Put it. Yeah, my divine assignment. Yeah, it's wonderful. Because like I never do this. Like this isn't. It was totally out. So I texted my brother, "Hey man, dude, I'm in, And my brother called it. He's like, "You tripping?" I was like, "Yes, kind of, yes." And can you just because I was convinced that mom, dad, and John were gonna feel something that I wasn't okay or that something was wrong because I was so connected to him. And I was really worried that my mom was going to try to call me and not be able to and get
oh, okay.
panicked. My job, she gets worried I'm going to get hurt or something. Um, but the next day, I walked up to breakfast and I had my journey lasted about 8.5 hours, about 2 hours longer than the other guys. But I took the dose. And Daniel, really, and again, oh, here's the other coincidence. My father's name is Dan, and the guy I was there with was named Dan. Both are from London. My dad's from London, and Dan was from London. It's not a coincidence. That was a connection. Uh, um, But when I walked up to the table, he goes, "You look like you've had the world lifted off your face." Then my face looked lighter.
Even
And
after, even only on 2 hours of sleep, huh? Like you still look
oh yeah,
energetic.
yeah, I couldn't believe it. Well, it's funny. The third part of my healing part is I looked in the mirror and it was this horrible, focused, angry, determined face. And I stared at my face in the mirror. And this was after my uncle went to use the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. I was like, what is that face? And I was like, that's the face of a man determined to hang himself. And I hung myself again in the mirror. Eh, In the mirror. And then after I came up from that, I looked at it again and I saw an evil version of my face that wasn't me, but it was a part of me. That my face almost, it's like seeing through a veil, that I could see my face change, and it was a very demonic, evil face. It wasn't scary, but it was there. And I remember looking at it, I go, I see you. I see you. And it was the face of someone that would, it's almost like the face of something evil that would enjoy making someone hang himself. It, it was such a real experience. I'm like, I see you. I see who you are. You're right there. I see you clearly. And so those three profound experiences, all the connections, and I had a bit of breakfast and he goes, and Dan, the fellow I was there with, he goes, did you have an experience? I'm like, oh yeah, I had an experience. And I talked to Gabe the night before. He had a profound experience too, very profound. That we all three of us did. Um, and then right away, going on the horse ride through the jungle of the ocean. And I mean, I'm trying hard not to cry. Like I'm so emotional, so connected to it. But it's almost like you know exactly what you're doing there, of how peaceful and cleansing and healing the horse ride, just being with this beautiful animal. And I liked my horse because my horse was a bit of a character. He saw his friends going away, so he tried to untie himself. He didn't try to bite the rope. He tried to delicately untie the rope. I'm like, I want that horse. I like that horse. And I got him. But riding this beautiful animal um, through this beautiful jungle to the beautiful ocean. And then we saw the whales spouting off the coast and galloped a bit. And, the poor horse guy, I mean, I'm sitting there with my, what the heck did I just go through last night face? Like the pictures that we got from there, I don't look happy, but I was very peaceful. I was like, just what was that? Because I don't think about those things, but that it was healing that had to happen. It had to. It was meant to happen. And it had very little to do with my ex. It had very little to do with my thought process leading into it. But the freeing my energy sure did. And it sure healed a lot of it.
That was your intention, was to free your energy to get unstuck. And so that's
Yeah.
it. We can think that there's one thing in our way, but it's really this bigger thing that's behind it. And that was
Right.
the reason for the thing that was in our path and that came later. So
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah.
go
And,
to
and
the root of it all.
that's right. And it was the reason why I failed to love my ex the way I would have liked to and the way she probably would have liked to. But again, she's found love and happiness again, whatever it's again. But I was like, man,
Yeah.
that's why I couldn't. So I was so blocked. And so
Wow.
yeah, we did a horse ride and that was wonderful. Lunch was wonderful. All the yoga and the healing after the massage. And then coloring with Darlene and the other and Cece and Alejandra, like just coloring, just sitting at the table coloring and then talking to them. And I experienced this openness that I've really never felt before. Just being very open. I'm very guarded at work, especially at work. People try to get around some pretty misguided people, some very evil people sometimes. And so you got to be, or dealing with, difficult scenes. You can't, I say to people, I say to my students, you can't nice your way through 911 calls, especially if most are pretty silly, but some of the more critical ones, you can't nice your way through it. You have to get focused and purposeful, and you gotta get nasty sometimes. And so you get this kind of guard, and then also having that unhealed energy probably made me pretty guarded too. And all of a sudden, I didn't have that. And out of nowhere, I wanted to know everything I could know about these wonderful people I was sitting there with,
Yeah.
asking them questions. I want to know them, looking at them in the eyes. And I was like, what am I doing? This this is not like me at all. I'm
I
usually pretty.
Yeah, that's what I think is nice about like the 4-day retreat is some people, there's a 3-day, 4-day, 7-day to have. that extra day to just get to know yourself again in this new environment with this new kind of more healed brain, with the trauma kind of lifted. It's like a reintroduction to who you can be going forward. And it's just to still be in that environment, it's still like a positive cocoon around you, supporting you. So you get the horseback riding, like the equine therapy and the massage, and then also like the art therapy and just talking
Yeah.
about your feelings to other men. Like that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and talking to the guys and us sharing that, and me and the guys shared with each other, and Alejandra was wonderful. When I came out, she's like, "You need to journal all of this." So thank goodness I did, because it's interesting, like such a profound experience. You can start to second guess it. I started like saying, like, did that really happen? It
Right.
did. I know, like, it was the most real experience of my life. And yeah, the art therapy, just sitting there coloring with no insight, like 41 and a half year old dude just coloring again. It was great. It was so good. And then I couldn't imagine leaving right away the next day. Thank goodness I did the 4 day. I mean, I would have loved to do the 7 day, but thank goodness I did the 4.
Yeah.
So I was sad to leave, but when I was walking through the airport, that's when I really noticed it. When I landed in Mexico City, I looked around. I'm like, I'm not hating everybody. Because usually I'd be sitting there just picking people apart, hating on them for not outwardly, just in my own head, just grumbling, just mad and just sour and pessimistic and cynical, and just like, oh, look at that person. Whether, all that. I wasn't doing it. I didn't want to do it. And I didn't realize I've been doing it for so, I mean, just, it was such an ingrained habit way. I mean, what I was actually doing is I was projecting my own
Yeah.
self-hatred on other people, and I don't feel that anymore.
That's beautiful. Well, yeah, now you're a more positive, peaceful person on the inside, so you can have those more loving experiences with people and see them for, and also be aware of the pain that exists inside each person and have more compassion for how they're showing up in their reality, because a lot of people's reactions is just due to their unprocessed pain, right?
Oh my gosh, it's like you've done this for a while, haven't you? My goodness. Yeah, it's great hearing you talk like that because, yeah, that's a great way to relate to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Colin, thank you so much for sharing like the story of the trip and everything. And that I feel like everyone's journey is different. Every time you work with a psychedelic with intention, it's always going to be a different journey. But I'm so
Yeah.
glad you were brave enough to like go back into the trip and kind of complete it and do those like important steps for your like family lineage. And you've been able to free so much energy for yourself and for your family, like through the work that you did. So that's so beautiful that you were, had the bravery and support to do that. Because I'm sure if you didn't have the team encouraging you, oh, it's time for you to go back into it, you might have been like, I think I'm done.
Good. I didn't know there was the healing part. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, that was intense and interesting. Sure. Would I do it again? No, I don't need to. But oh,
you
the
would have, you
healing
would have,
part.
yeah, you would have missed the whole point of why you went. So,
Yeah. And then the whole reason why they covered our eyes a lot. So we don't get distracted and don't
yeah.
get away.
It's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
important, the eye mask, so you focus inwards and you're not worried about what you look like or anything that's happening. So, um,
Yeah.
well, I just have about like two more questions for you, if you don't mind. So,
Yeah.
what would you say like the best part of the retreat was?
The people.
Yeah,
Beyond the healing part, it was the people.
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, they weren't corporate. There's no corporate feel to them. It was, and hearing their stories, it's almost like they were sent there to do that for the time they do it.
That's exactly what I say. I said each person who works at the center, it's literally like they were put on earth to like be doing their job. Like that's
Yeah,
their divine assignment is the work that they're doing. I completely agree with you. Yeah.
it was incredible. That so the people were, and I was talking to one of the guys. The other fellow was from America. I was like, man, back home, this would be ruined with a whole bunch of stupid certifications and unnecessary this and that, and just these people would have had to have like advanced. I mean, it's just been so messy. And these people just they brought themselves. They were so Darlene, and I was like, Darlene, how long have you been doing this? You must have been doing 2 months. I was like, no, 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 no. No, you've been doing this for years. She's like, no, started like 2 months ago. I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay,
Oh yeah,
crazy. I
she's
mean,
one of the nurses to be in the room. Yeah, so I feel like we'll have come in. They have their background in like nursing or training, and then they are introduced to the psychedelic aspect, and it's so cool to see how they're able to learn and support the staff, and
yeah.
um, it's important.
And Alejandra, the psychologist there, she was so great. She's so smart.
She's
She can
phenomenal.
tell she's got a lot of experience. So yeah, no, the people were wonderful.
I like to say I'm like each person on the team is like they're really like an expert in their area, and like the hypnotherapist, like everyone just brings in their really strong expertise. So okay, amazing. So what would the last question, or second to last question is why would what would you say to somebody who's kind of on the fence about if they should come to this retreat or not? Like how what would you say to them?
Oh, I would say trust it. Um, from a skeptic, I mean, I was totally skeptical. I was terrified to go. I almost backed out several times the night before. I almost like I can sneak out of here and be on my own. I don't care. I've traveled even before taking the mushrooms. I was like, I have to do this. If I didn't, oh my, what would I have missed out on? I can't, it is worth every penny. Um, it's an investment in yourself and in your life. And in my review, what I said was, your description of this is like 30 to 40 years of therapy all at once. I was like, it's accurate and inaccurate because it's accurate because it's the best they got. Therapy won't touch this. It will not touch. It won't go this deep. But so the description is accurate. It is. Except I don't think 40 years of therapy would take me to where I went and expose, like release what it released. So I would say listen to it and follow it. Like I said, I was sent there. I didn't. I'm very frugal, and for me to just, it's good money. It really is, but it's worth every penny. And I'm saving. I'm going to do it again. I mean, there's no. I'll absolutely do another 4-day retreat. Um, yeah, yeah, because it was just profound. So I would say listen to and trust it.
Think amazing. Yeah, and it's wonderful when we have our alumni come back. I think what we're doing at the center, it's not creating dependency of like, oh, you have to come back or da da da, but it's really just like there's a safe, beautiful place that exists to support you when there's more layers for healing that you want to address, you know? So it's like I feel like it's just so nice to know and so comforting for each of our guests to know there's this safe place for them to return to, and there's this staff that's going to love them and support them with that process.
Oh yeah, no dependency whatsoever. I mean, I felt a little bit when I was leaving. I'm like, I don't want to leave these people. This is so beautiful. It's so peaceful.
I
I feel
know.
so loved. I feel so accepted and loved. Like, I don't want to leave. But Alejandra said, you're going to return to your life. The mushrooms won't fix your life, but that's up to you. But but bring this growth and this healing with you and apply it. You have to do the work. And she's absolutely right. You can't stay. You got to come back to your life and apply it. And I have. And yeah. So
Beautiful.
it's
That's what
wonderful.
it's all about is, you know, doing the work and then making changes to yourself, your energy, your life once you return. So I can see you doing that very beautifully. So that's the last question that I have is what are you really taking away from this retreat?
Oh, the just the level of peace I feel with myself. Um, it's funny, like I was like, oh, I kind of want to move forward in my career, maybe move and all, and it's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just more of a very peaceful. Oh yeah, I want to feel. When I came back, the profound was I want to engage with people, like actually engage with them. I want connection. I want genuine connection with people, and that could be a relationship, but it doesn't have to be. It's and I felt very connected with my family in a way I hadn't felt before. We all love each other, but that connection connected me with my family, my mom, dad, my brother, in a way I hadn't felt before, but made sense because there's no coincidences with it. And so it really made me want to strengthen those connections while I still have them, uh, and kind of move forward from that rather than a job or just trying to, because before I always said, I was always trying to escape myself. I was always trying to escape myself through my job. I was very inflated, not arrogant, but inflated, in a very passive way. Um, but I've really identified less with my work. I still enjoy it. It's still very purposeful, but it's not me. Like it's what I do. And so it's really not about moving forward in my career. It's more about moving forward with myself in my own life and engaging and applying myself uh, for the enjoyment of it, not to you know validate who I am, but because I have a valid existence. So yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, you're worthy of being here. You're worthy of creating a beautiful life and unblocked, free of the things that have been holding you back in the past.
yeah, and still dealing with the challenges and all that. There's no there's no, uh,
Like magical.
ignorance. Yeah, yeah. There's no facade about that. Like life is life, right? But yeah, to really kind of have that freedom to do that.
Yeah, super, super precious, That's like it's like receiving yourself back. You've received back your ability to be more present with others, and that's like your conscious attention, really.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at like listening to them, hearing them, looking them in the eyes. Never looked people in the eyes. Always look in the mouth, and just to be engaged with people, want to get to know them genuinely for no other reason that they're positive and they're present, and I want it. It's not to.
It sounds like, yeah, you're also more behind the driver's seat of your life again. Like your consciousness is kind of more behind the wheel and in control again. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Colin, for sharing from your heart and being willing to share for others so that your story can inspire other men, other women, other people to come to our retreat and to, find their own healing and to experience their own journey, which is going to be completely unique to them and their own experiences. So, and thank you for, just sharing how much our team, how their support meant the world to you. And they're really just the most beautiful people. So I'm so glad that you feel that as well. And we can't wait to welcome you back, hopefully, whenever you're ready.
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, you said it right. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful.
Amazing. I'll talk to you soon, Colin. Thank you again.